Okay, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and I'll call the Planning Commission meeting to order tonight. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everyone who made it out on this snowy evening. I've heard mostly good reports on the road, so let's hope it stays that way. Okay. Crystal, if you could help me with the roll call, please.
Okay, Mike Helsman.
Here.
Ed Mark.
Here.
Laura Schultz.
Here.
Robert Weiler.
Here.
Kent Adwell.
Present.
And then absent, we have Tim Aker, Dan Calhoun, and Jan Jachitsky.
And we got Amy here. Okay, looking at number 4 here, approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we've only got one item on the consent agenda tonight, so we're going to do citizens' comments for that one item on the consent agenda. Is there anybody that would like to speak to the one item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, citizens' comments for the...
I am the person requesting to sign up. Should I speak?
No. Seeing no citizens that want to comment on the consent agenda items are now closed. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Mike?
Mike.
Mike's got the second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. You can go home. Okay, item number 7, public hearing. Public hearing number 1, topic conditional use amendment. Location 3115 Highway 83, DLC 075399002. Owner of the farmhouse 1848 LLC, applicant Whitney Schneider. Matter, conditional use amendment to rustic manor to allow the event facility as the principal use with the bed and breakfast continuing on a temporary basis. Is there anyone that would like to make citizens' comments to this public hearing number 1? Come on up.
Susie Thompson, 700 Milwaukee Street. There is one thing, the wording on who would use the property with their, for instance, hair and makeup people. The wording in there, I'm still not comfortable with the way it's written because it sounds like they can have future customers that may have hair and makeup done for some other event at some other place at some future time to test out the hair and makeup people. So to me, that is a public use that is not related specifically to Farmhouse 1848. So the language on who is using it is outside the norm. Other than that, it's a beautiful property, and I absolutely love the property and the people that run it, and it's a great event venue, and it's the only one that I can ever see us possibly having in Delafield, so I'm glad that they're here.
That's great, thank you. Any other comments on the public hearing? Any other comments on the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. And we'll move on to number 8, citizens' comments on items other than the public hearing. So anything else on the agenda? If you'd like to speak and make public comments on anything else, come on up. This is your opportunity to speak.
Rob Dabrowski, 166 Laurel Court, Delafield. I sent an email through Molly to all of you on the Plan Commission regarding our property, which if you look at the map is directly north of the exit from the proposed St. John's Golf Course development to Oakwood Road. It's basically at the top of the hill. My backyard is right there. Our home and the road are at exactly the same level. I must say that the proposed development is generally well thought out, I believe, and pretty much consistent and understanding of the surroundings. The road location probably is the safest spot for it. I mean, you're at the top of the hill, so you don't have to worry about people crossing the road, getting hit by traffic, cars turning in and out. Unfortunately, that's my backyard. A 40-car subdivision coming out into my backyard is not really what I planned on when I moved here 20 years ago. I mean, it was a golf course. You kind of anticipate lights coming in the front of your house. We live in the back of our house. That's where our dining room is. That's where our great room is. During the summers, we spend our evenings on the patio. There are trees along Oakwood right now. They don't really provide any screening from headlights. I don't care if people see in my backyard. There's really not a whole heck of a lot to see, but the lights flooding in through the back of the yard, especially during the winter months. There are no leaves on the trees anymore. The days are shorter. People are going to work in the dark. They're coming home in the dark. And it really, I believe it affects our property value and our ability to use and enjoy our home. The current proposal calls for adding additional trees there. As far as lighting goes, that really doesn't cut it, especially during the winter. And we have these things called deer in our neighborhood, and they pretty much eat everything. So that's what I would like to see a berm put up. Just natural grass. It's a nature area as it is. It wouldn't require any maintenance. The deer can't eat the dirt. To me, that just seems to be the best proposal possible. If you would, as you exit that road, any car that would go east on Oakwood would be directly panning through our first floor living space. We probably wouldn't be affected by any traffic headed to the west because it's kind of offset. Our house has a southwest exposure, and as that would occur, if you look at the picture, I mean, it's just covering the whole first floor. I'm not asking for a berm that would go across the complete back of my property. I don't care if the lights shine in my garage. I mean, that's not an issue. It's just the space that we use. I thank you for your time and would really invite you, especially when the leaves are off the trees, if you want to take a ride down Oakwood. And if you know where that road's coming out, if you take a look off to the north, you'll see our place. And that's it.
Great, thank you for the comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak, citizens' comments, anything on the agenda? Person behind the pole.
Jennifer Jeske, 110 Hickory Court. And then I have a list of other neighbors who are in agreement with the comments that I'm making here. Brett and Sarah Barnett, 119 Birch. Justin Sherman, 107 Birch. Kathy Wiedemann, 311 White Pine. Brian and Tina Christie, 314 White Pine. Kathy Hansen, 1062 Hawthorne. Craig and Cheryl Kuhari, 106 Birch. Kevin and Hillary Wanacke, 1329 Hawthorne. Kaylin Bree Decker, 112 Hickory Court. Jason and Megan Stevens, 225 Birch. Helena Solarte, Aspen Court. Larry and Betsy Michaels, 272 272 Bark River. Amy and Bill Lucci, 231 Pine. Jennifer Bauman, 306 White Pine. Jeremy and Mika Craven, 226 White Pine. And Kevin and Leslie Moran, 116 Hickory Court. So first of all, I want to thank the Planning Commission for their time and their continued attention to the development, the Hendricks development on the golf course and that surrounding areas, and to the developers for their considering the previous comments as they put forth this new proposal. While we would prefer to see fewer lots and 1 acre lots on the golf course, we understand and appreciate that the smaller half-acre lots allow for more green space. The desire for green space and vegetative buffers has been voiced by many during the previous discussions about the development of this area, and we feel that's very important to any plan moving forward, those vegetative spaces. One concern of the current proposal going forward is that the common open space that is essentially around the perimeter of the development be specifically protected as a vegetative border with no mow plantings. The plan specifies a mowed walking path. However, that walking path is somewhat redundant with the sidewalk that is provided in the front of the properties along the roadway. So we'd like to see the walking path behind the properties, such as along that western border, be rather unofficial, allowing people to walk there, but not necessarily mowed. This should be a true vegetative border that is well delineated from neighboring properties by a specified tree lines and by abundant plantings, and not allow any adjacent neighbors to encroach on this space for their personal use. Additionally, we'd like the developer to consider the rear and front setbacks. While the 20-foot rear setback is relatively standard per municipal code, it's somewhat nonsensical from the standpoint that people utilize their backyards much more than their front yards. And I might bring attention to what Rob just said about, them utilizing their backyard and how that borders Oakwood. So that's where people put their patios, their swing sets, their vegetable gardens, etc. So without decreasing the vegetative border in the back, why not move the homes a little bit more forward on the lots so that instead of having a 40-foot setback in the front and a 20 in the back, make it more like 30 and 30, or 25 in the front and 35 in the back, and increase that rear setback. The rear setback in the adjacent Valley Road Place neighborhood was set by the developer as 50 feet. Traffic continues to be a concern, with a new total of 75 homes between the two areas being added. Just traffic in town and along Oakwood and so forth. Lastly, as the proposal continues to progress, we'd like to see a diversity of housing styles as opposed to a more cookie-cutter look from the same builder. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Who else would like to speak? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. I'm trying to think how to introduce myself. Reverend Dr. Kelly O'Lear, U.S. Army retired Lieutenant Colonel. My address is W298-8N1864 Lost Tree Court, Pewaukee. And I'm going to shock you all by speaking to the tattoo shop as proposed by Samantha. What I want to share with you is, being about a 30-year Army veteran, I know what bad tattoo shops look like. And I know, looking around here, that some of you are similar age and generation as myself, and there's some assumptions there. I'm here to tell you that's not what this would be. Already my wife, who is an interior designer, has had a business in Pinehurst, North Carolina, has done interior design and decoration in Europe. She's the one who will be doing that. It will look good, it will be good, and I know Sam, that's another part of it. It'll be really good. It'll be good for the economy here. And I think most of all, the quality of people who are in charge of this are impressive. I've known them for a little bit over a year. I'm so impressed with her husband that he's my graduate assistant. So I think it would be a good thing for the community here. It'll be good income, and it'll particularly be good during the summer kind of iteration of folks who enjoy the summer here. That's all.
Great, thank you for your comments. An impressive title. Who'd like to be next? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Katie Christine. My address is 57 Oakwood Drive. I'm directly across from the development, and I have a home facing the development. So I'd like to make a comment on the entrance to the development. I was pleased to see that the developers are proposing replacing pine trees or adding pine trees. So that indicates to me that they are being sensitive to our needs, whether it's my needs or my neighbor's needs, who also will have the entrance on his property or facing his property. I hadn't considered the idea of a berm. I kind of like that, but whether they move forward with the trees or perhaps consider a berm, I'm a little concerned about the language in that it says they're willing. I'd want to see something a little more concrete, like they are committed to do it, and there'll be some kind of guarantee of that, of some sort. The other comments I have are on the mowed walking trail that was mentioned. I'm a runner, and I love running through Delafield, so I'm very excited when I see anything about developing more walking paths and that, because I am running along Oakwood Drive and do always wear my safety vest when it's dark and try to face traffic. So any mention of a additional path is good news to me. So if there is movement forward with the mowed walking path, I just want to ensure that it is mowed, because the developer hasn't mowed the golf course this entire time. I know there was no commitment to do that, but I guess I had kind of expected that they would keep it up, which they did not. So, and then the other comment I have is on the paved recreational path on Oakwood. Love the idea, but would like to see it connect somewhere. So to have, I know that's near and dear to your heart. I think we've talked about it before. But to have a paved recreational path that ends before it connects to the path down on C, to me, it's a nice effort, but I'd love to see it continue on and connect up with other things. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone else like to speak? Come on up.
I'm still Susie Thompson, 700 Milwaukee Street. Two things. First of all, I just met Sam for the first time tonight, and all of you know I have tattoos, probably more than she does. There is a difference of one place versus another, as was pointed out earlier, and all of you know I was against previous proposed business going into that location. I know there had been comments before, kiddingly, some people said the previous business would have been as much welcome as a tattoo shop. And I said, wait a minute, I'm tired of driving so far, and if we had somebody who was really, really good, but I've gotten tattoos in different states and in different countries, and there is huge difference of something quality and nice. So I would greatly support Sam and having some good neighbors there. Second of all, talking about St. John's and the development there, both on Beacon Hill and the golf course. All of you know that my husband and I moved here 5.5 years ago. We unfortunately lost all 9 trees that were on our property, and our property is 68 foot by 92. So we're a very small lot right here in downtown Delafield. The 2 best trees we had were ash, and the Emerald Ash Board decided to defoliate them within 2 weeks. So the arborist for Delafield came and told us, he didn't ask us, he told us we needed to take them down. So we did. We had 3 walnuts that had dead heads, and like going to war, if you lose your head, you're dead. You can lose your arms or legs and survive, but not if you lose your head. There are many trees in the area that is going to be development that do have dead heads, and I looked at that list, and I think it's on page 93 of the papers for tonight. There are trees that are going to come down, and it's sad to say some of them have to come down because they are dead. And they still have some live bits on them, but they're big, old, dead trees that are 20 and 30 years beyond their expected lifespan. That being said, when we talk about trees, I planted trees that were literally 6 to 8 inches tall, white pine, 3 of them. Drive by our house and look at them now. One of them we've kept lit. It's white. It has white lights. They're on 24/7. That tree that was about 6 to 8 inches tall, it was a stick. I bought it at Home Depot for $2.95 and planted it 5 years prior. And it is now, well, it was 8 foot. It's still growing. It's a white pine. It's 9 foot tall. The other 2 are 7 foot tall and 8 foot tall. So that's 5 years of growth.
Susie, can
And they
you
were
try to
tiny.
wrap it up, please?
So please note that the species that were noted that they're going to be planted there, none of them are the species that are dead and dying. There are some flowering crabapple trees that are dying everywhere. Blue spruce are dying everywhere. Ash trees are dying. The species were carefully picked. I would say to neighbors on adjoining properties, please consider buying some little bitty trees and just watering them for 2 years and then watch them soar. There is more explanation than changes for that development. Consider just planting some more trees. And if anybody wants me to come over, I volunteer free help if you need some help with gardening. And every year I give away $6,000 to $8,000 worth of perennials. So if you want some really cool flowers, see me.
Thank you much. Anybody else? Anybody else for citizens' comments? Yep, another person behind the pole. Oh,
Well, Reverend James Thomas, 2549 Nutter Circle. I also want to speak on behalf of Sam's tattoo parlor that she's hoping to open up. So I grew up in the rural conservative South, and I never had a tattoo, never knew anybody with tattoos, and would have looked down on anybody with tattoos, especially a tattoo parlor. I then served for 10 years in the Navy as a nuclear engineer, and every single one of my sailors had tattoos from probably here, probably up past their neck. And I spent many times going with them to tattoo parlors and various things, and I realized very quickly the type of person who has a tattoo and the type of tattoo shop are just as different as everybody else. And so the type of environment that Delafield wants to cultivate and to have for its citizens and for those especially who come here in the summer to visit Lake Country and enjoy it, a tattoo parlor done right is something that will benefit this community and has the potential to be just as different as any other tattoo parlor anywhere else in the country, just like any other city or any other town is different from anywhere else. So I would say knowing Sam, knowing her husband Leighton, and knowing the people supporting them, that this tattoo parlor could only benefit the city of Delafield. It would not be an eyesore, it would not be a seedy location. In fact, it could actually show really that this type of environment, this type of establishment is a positive for a small town in a way that does not detract or really ruin what makes Delafield such a wonderful place to live and raise kids. I have a father of 4 children, and it's the type of place that I would feel comfortable with my kids around. Sam's also their babysitter quite frequently. So she's someone I trust with my 6-year-old, my 4-year-old, my 2-year-old, and my newborn. So, thank you.
you pulled them all in tonight. Is there anybody else? Any other citizens' comments? Alrighty, citizens' comments are now closed. We'll move on to number 9, unfinished business. DLC 075399002311 Highway 83 owner, the Farmhouse 1848 LLC, applicant Whitney Schneider. Applicant requests approval of a conditional use amendment to allow the event facility as a principal use with the bed and breakfast continuing on a temporary basis. Do we have Whitney online, or I don't see her
I
here?
think Whitney's on Zoom.
Okay,
Yep. Can you hear
sounds
me?
good. We can hear you.
Excellent.
All right, Amy.
Okay, sorry, my screen's blacking out here.
There she is.
So we've talked about this application quite a bit. I think I'll get into the specifics right away. The applicant is interested in continuing to operate Rustic Manor, the event facility on their property, without the necessity of having a bed and breakfast. So if you will recall, right now they have a bed and breakfast conditional use, and the event facility is accessory to that bed and breakfast. Well, the event facility has become a very prominent use on the property. They're booked out. I want to say, Whitney, how far, well into 2024, I think, at this point. Yep, all of our Saturdays in the 24 are gone now. So, it's a very successful operation, and then we just recently amended the text of the zoning code to allow an event facility in the agricultural districts by a conditional use. So they no longer need the bed and breakfast in order to exist. So they're proposing the conditional use at this point, and so what I did is I just went ahead and drafted a conditional use agreement that lays out all of the conditions of the text amendment pretty much, and Whitney, the applicant, did a really nice job of responding to every one of those conditions, and that information is in the packet. So just real quickly, what is being proposed on the property is, if you look at the exhibit, which will be attached as part of the conditional use, Building A, which is the building on the left side of the site plan, it's not on the screen, sorry, will be the event facility, and then the bed and breakfast can continue to be in a bed and breakfast, and then Building C would be the equipment storage, but Building B will eventually become other uses, which are complementary to the event facility. I did send the conditional use agreement to the city attorney, who is, Jim Hammis is standing in on this particular case. And he would like to clean up the term complementary, so we will send this conditional use to Common Council with probably a more defined term. I didn't copy the language from the code. The code does provide a greater definition, so I'll probably just go ahead and copy what's in the code exactly. But what I am suggesting in this conditional use agreement is that they not have to come back through the conditional use process in a public hearing every time they propose a use in that building, but that they need to come through Plan Commission for a business plan of operation, as long as it meets the definition of the code. Other than that, everything in the CU agreement is standard based on the text amendment. There is mention of the hours of operation, which are continue to be limited from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday, with indoor amplified music ending by 10:45, and then 7 a.m. to midnight Friday through Sunday, with indoor amplified music ending by 11:45, and then New Year's Eve being the only exception, open until 1 a.m. with the amplified music ending at 12:45.
Those are roughly the same times they had before, right?
Yeah, I believe, Whitney, did you make any changes to your hours of operation?
No, those are all of our contracted times as our agreements with our clients are right now.
But that's what was in your conditional use before as well?
Yep, that's been since day one.
So other than that, and then the way this is drafted, it will supersede the previous CU. So they had a conditional use and an amendment. This will just be a fresh start. It includes the applicable conditions from the previous CU built into this one, and then the ones associated with the new text amendment. So, well, one of the members of the public did mention the complementary uses. With that, the applicants don't know exactly what they're going to put in that building. They just want to make sure that they can market their property to not require that bed and breakfast use, which is really the impetus of this conditional use amendment. So again, they will have to come back here for the business plan of op. And so you can decide what that means when they come in and whether or not it meets the intent of the code.
And we do have in that conditional use, no businesses for public use, meaning people that would just come in to go to that business by itself. So that's in that conditional use as well, just in a different paragraph or sentence.
Yeah. Right.
But the real question Amy had, are you comfortable, because she said a lot, but the focus was, are you comfortable with them just coming in for a business plan of operation each time they do that? But she's suggesting to you? Or do you want for us to have to go through the whole public notice portion of a conditional use modification? That's really the bottom line question.
No, I would prefer that they don't have to come in, go through the whole process, lengthy process, but that they can just come in for any kind of,
Like any other business plan of operation.
Yeah, for a business plan of operation. Make it work for them is really why.
Yeah, we went through enough detail as it was. I think the business plan of operation should be satisfactory then.
Yeah.
Good?
Agreed.
And then, so the recommended motion is to recommend Common Council approve the conditional use amendment in accordance with the draft conditional use agreement, subject to city attorney review. So we'll probably tweak a couple of those terms and clauses.
I do have a question about number 17. I think Susie brought this up. Just the last line, the last two words, on or off-site. Do we need to even say off-site there? Because if any services are taking place off-site, that is not needed.
That the people may go on or off-site?
Right.
So the reason why that came up is when the applicant came in here during the text amendment process, they had mentioned that somebody might want to come in and test drive a hairstylist or what have you. But that doesn't mean, with the intent of possibly using Rustic Manor as the final venue, but they may not choose Rustic Manor. And so that would be extremely difficult for the applicant to control the clients that are coming in and out of the building, with the idea that the people that are serving their clients are not just advertising themselves to the general public, but there is always the possibility that that person may ultimately not choose Rustic Manor, and so they just wanted to leave it a little open in that regard. But again, when somebody comes in for that business use and applies for the business plan of operation, you can tighten or loosen it up as you feel necessary based on what's being proposed. It's hard to get, understandably so, it's a little vague, but it's really hard to pinpoint it at this point.
Okay.
And if I could comment towards that, one of the purposes that we were really discussing was, let's say a hairstylist. To kind of recap how a lot of stylists in our industry work, at least wedding stylists, they don't necessarily have a base of operations. A lot of these women work and run their businesses for hair and makeup out of their home. And I'm sure you can imagine that doesn't always offer the most luxurious experience for your clients. So having people looking for a home base in order to offer a trial run, which is a necessity to a wedding. Every woman is going to want a trial before their wedding for hair and makeup. So someone who would rent, let's say, a business space in the farmhouse to have as their home base for their, not salon, that's the wrong word, but for them to be able to offer their services, these trials, they're not going to rent it just for the purpose of giving trials to people at Rustic Manor. They have other clients at other venues, and so it really would eliminate the opportunity for us to bring in a business such as that, because we would be tying their hands to operating their own company in a space that would otherwise benefit them. The second example would be a photographer as well. Even us, we have a photography division of our company, and while we shoot mainly weddings at Rustic Manor, I do accept bookings at venues across Wisconsin a few times a year. And so those clients, if they wanted to do their engagement session here on our grounds during the weekdays, because we have such a gorgeous property that we can use on a Thursday night, I have the ability to offer that to a client who maybe is not getting married at Rustic Manor, but is using a Rustic Manor-based service. So it's kind of a gray area for us, and it kind of limits us to a lot more restrictions. But I understand the vagueness of the term, but those are two examples as to why we really appreciate that flexibility of that term in item 17.
Okay.
All right, who's going to be our motion maker on this one?
I'll make the motion. Mike, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
we'll see if we last the evening. Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend to the Common Council that they approve the conditional use amendment in accordance with the draft conditional use agreement, subject to City Attorney Hammonds' review.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 10. New business A, DLC 0733998002, 3161 Village Square Drive, owner Delafield Station LLC, applicant Doyle Signs, representing Pick and Save. Applicant requests approval of 6 sign face replacements to their existing signage. Is that applicant here or online? Online, gotcha. Amy, you want to kick us off?
Okay, so I am going to a plan set that is not included in the packet. If the applicant were in person, they were going to bring hard copies. But it's a pretty simple proposal. So Pick and Save in Village Square at the corner of 16 and 83 is just simply proposing to replace all of their signs where they currently have, where it currently says Pick and Save. They're changing the font. You may have noticed the font is changing at Pick and Saves all over the place. It's a little bit cleaner. The signs that are proposed on some of the wall-mounted elevations exceeded the maximum size allowed, which is 150 square feet. So they must currently be a little bit over 150 square feet. But the applicant did submit this new packet where they are going to comply with that 150 square foot requirement on all the signs. So really, they'll bring the signage into greater compliance or into compliance, whereas the existing signage did not. And they were really able to accomplish that just by the way the curvature of the letters and being specific with their measurements. And that does include the 3 wall-mounted signs, a pylon sign, and then I believe two monument signs have Pick and Save faces on them. So with that, I would change my recommendation to approve the signage as proposed at tonight's meeting.
Okay. I'll make a motion then to approve the signage as proposed.
I'll second.
Is that good enough motion for you?
Yeah, maybe just say at tonight's meeting, just because it is a little
Okay.
different than what's in the packet.
Add amended. As proposed at tonight's meeting.
Okay.
And I'm good with that second. then.
Second's good with that. Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, sign is approved. Okay, we'll move on to B. DLC 07339980063201 Village Square Drive, owner ISB Community Bank. Applicant Taryn Wright on behalf of JP Morgan Chase Bank. Applicant requests approval of a business plan of operation, permanent signage, and site plan and appearance approval for a new bank. Amy?
Okay, so Chase, do we have the applicant on Zoom? We do,
Oh,
I
good
think.
question. Is the applicant on Zoom?
This is David Stengel. Tron Wright is my colleague,
Oh.
but I'm the project manager.
Great.
of the architect.
So you're swinging twice tonight. 2 in a row, right? You had the last one, am I right?
No.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were the same guy doing both of them. Okay.
No,
Gotcha.
I'm just doing the Chase Bank.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Chase Bank is occupying the existing vacant bank site also at Village Square, though, so that is the same. The location of the property is shown on the screen. They're just proposing, so it already is set up as a bank, so they're proposing interior improvements, and then they are adding a masonry enclosure that'll be 9 feet by 18. It'll match the siding of the building. I'm going to see if I can just go to that so you can at least see where it is. So it's on the east side of the building. I guess the only thing with this is there used to be landscaping there, or there's landscaping there now. That landscaping will be removed, so you should determine whether or not that's required. To the east of that is a slope, and then you've got the highway. So I wouldn't say that it's very visible other than to the traffic that's coming through the site. They are also proposing changes to signage to identify their name as Chase Bank. And I'm going to go to another document here. So they're going to be putting the same size signage on all four sides of the building, which you can see on this plan. All of the signs will be 36.9 square feet, and they will be illuminated. That signage does comply with the ordinance. The signs on the north and east elevations are new, so the existing or the previous bank must not have had signage on those two walls. They are also proposing a sign, there will be an ATM machine with their name on it, and then as you're going through the drive-through canopy, there will be a little ATM placard on the canopy. Other than that, they are proposing, it's in here somewhere, there's a temporary sign shown in here. That is something that needs to be approved by the administrator, so you do not have to approve that. And these are all just, we don't really review the parking signs. Trying to find the monument sign. Oh, here we go.
There it is.
So the existing monument sign is on the left. It did not have a name plate, but it had a time and temperature electronic feature. They're removing that. This is new from the packet. They just submitted this. They decided to take off this upper part, and the sign on the right is the sign that they're proposing, and they are proposing to put their name plate on it. That monument sign is 6 feet tall. The overall square footage of the sign itself is 13 square feet, and the overall monument area is 46 square feet. The overall square footage of the signage on the site complies with the ordinance. So other than that, unless you have any questions, I don't have any comments other than to approve, my recommendation is to approve the business plan of operation, site plan, and signage. You can scratch the subject to the size of the sign being submitted because they did submit that. And then you have to decide whether or not you want additional plantings.
Which page is the plantings on? Like, I'm having a hard time finding that.
There is not a plan that shows the plantings because they're not changing any landscaping, lighting, or site features other than the enclosure structure. So they're not proposing it to replace any planting. So that would just be something, if you think they should, then we do need a landscape plan.
We do need a landscape plan.
Yes.
That has been unmaintained for 2+ years, and we need to take a good, real look at what they're going to do as far as, it basically needs all redone. There's really nothing alive in there. So, yeah, we need a full landscape plan for this. And are they painting anything? Are they changing the brick color? Are there any exterior changes that they're making?
There is one. As far as I know, the only change that they are making is they are painting this north elevation.
So we can't see your screen on the computer.
Who's controlling that?
There we go.
Okay. So do you see where my cursor is? That is going to be painted a gray color to provide a little
the gable.
mixture. Yeah, in the gable.
Okay, that's okay.
And all the currently painted surfaces will be painted just to give it a refresh.
The same color that they are today?
Correct.
Okay.
They're taking out all the plantings around where the garbage disposal area is. Is that it?
Where they're going to put the enclosure for mechanicals.
Oh, for mechanicals.
So that on that same elevation, you can see the enclosure will match the building.
Yeah.
Should be plantings there. Maybe there's not, but there should be, and so
Yeah.
they would be removing that.
I think I would like to see plantings just for the fact it kind of softens things.
We need a landscape plan.
Yeah.
And they might, just so you know, they might not have room right there because of depending on the space between that structure and the entrance drive. Do you want that landscape plan before they get started, or do you want it before they obtain occupancy or by a certain date?
Well, we want to make sure it's a landscaping plan that we like, and we don't want them really.
Yeah.
Can
to
staff,
be able to proceed without our approval on their
Okay.
landscape plan.
I'm just asking because I think they wanted to try to get in there in the month of March.
can staff approve the plan, landscape plan?
I would prefer to bring it back here. I just don't know if
Yeah.
it needs to be brought here before they get started, but we can hopefully bring something back for March meeting.
Is that going to work with your timeline, Mr. Applicant?
Well, they've already obtained the demolition permit, and they were planning to start demo inside this upcoming Monday, and then early March would be potentially starting the new work. Would this landscape plan hold up the building permit?
I don't think so.
No, so usually when it's a space that's already there, the building inspector allows the interior remodeling to take place. It's just being done at your own risk as to whether or not you'll get the business. And I don't think the Plan Commission is suggesting the business is a problem in any way. It's just getting that landscaping approved. Do you know when they want to open up to the public?
I believe it's the fall of 2023.
We got lots of time.
Okay, then that shouldn't be a problem at all. It would be a matter of you getting site plan approval before you get started, before you occupy the space.
Sure, that will be no problem.
Do we have detail on the garbage enclosure and stuff at this facility? Have they supplied any of that?
I believe it's all included. Am I correct in saying that it's an expanded area of this east elevation? Is that where the dumpster enclosure is? I have my cursor.
Yes, the dumpster enclosure, we're leaving it untouched. This is an enclosure around the mechanical equipment, and it's just 3 sides attached to the existing building, but it will mimic the dumpster enclosure.
So there is an existing dumpster enclosure and it's in good working order?
That's correct. That is located in the northeast corner of the lot.
Right.
If, Mike, can you put my screen on? Or
I seen it on the blueprint.
Crystal? So this east elevation is showing the dumpster enclosure. It matches the wall, and then,
That's probably why I can't see it. It matches too well.
yeah, the north elevation includes the mechanical enclosure.
And did I see that correctly on one of the top views, that there is some plantings around the dumpster? I thought.
Well, their plans that they submitted for this meeting don't include, I don't believe they
I thought
include a
one of
land.
the plan views had something there around it.
They might show,
I just wasn't sure if that was something that was current or being proposed.
Well, that's why we need a plan.
they're not proposing any, I mean, they didn't propose any landscaping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it must be, if there's something there, it's existing.
That's correct. We do not have any new landscaping proposed. So everything that is existing, which around the dumpster enclosure that are existing, and those will remain untouched. It's the ones where we're putting the new mechanical equipment enclosure that we're removing the existing plants.
Are you talking about this plan?
No, you just scroll down slightly, downward slightly. The other down.
Oh.
Sorry.
That'd be scrolling up.
No, stop. Yeah,
Oh,
now you
over
can,
here.
Can you see it?
It's right there.
Yeah.
I seen it on
that's
the
a
And
whole different
you know,
spot.
I guess if they're going to put some kind of plantings around mechanicals, let's just try to get those to match up so it does a better job, I think, of concealing that.
Yeah.
Can you see that, Mr. Applicant, what we're looking at? Yeah. You can see
Yes,
it.
yeah, the plants around the dumpster enclosure, we want to try to mimic those around our new enclosure.
Yes.
So then
Yeah.
the brick enclosure I was talking to you about is not the dumpster enclosure because that's not attached to the building. So that must be another mechanical enclosure. So the dumpster enclosure is on the side of the parking lot in the northeast corner.
Yeah.
Right. We do have limited space around the mechanical enclosure because we have that emergency exit immediately adjacent to it. But we'll get.
Yeah, take a crack at it.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's the exterior material that's being used on it, if there's something that's complementary that way, you know, not that necessarily that if it has to be a planting, but if it's something complementary that does a better job of hiding it, I think that would be worth looking at least.
Did you want a landscape plan of the entire site or just the
Yes.
the
Yes,
entire
yeah.
site?
Yeah.
Is that clear? I don't know if that's clear to the applicant.
Yes, yes, we can
Okay.
handle that. We'll do a survey of what's alive.
Yes,
and
what's alive?
What's not alive,
Good idea.
and we'll keep what's alive and replace what's not.
Okay.
All right. So what is your recommendation?
I think you can recommend approval of the business plan of operation and signage as proposed.
Okay.
And the site plan
Will come later.
should come back to next plan commission meeting
Okay.
or whenever they're ready.
So I'll make a motion then to
We're
approve.
fighting for motions tonight. This is
No,
interesting. We don't have Tim here, and now we
Yeah,
got.
we usually defer, right?
Controls
Loose
that.
cannons tonight.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the business plan of operation and the signage, and then with the site plan coming later, which includes the landscape plan for approval.
I'll second that.
All right. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to C, DLC 0798966, 418 Genesee Street, owner VT Properties Incorporated, and applicant Samantha Stinson. Applicant requests feedback regarding a conceptual presentation to operate a tattoo shop. Come on up, Samantha. You give us your name and address?
Samantha Stinson, and forgive me, it's been a really long day, and our address was just legally changed by the city. I'm going to give you our old address, and then I will update.
That's
you with
okay,
the-
we just need an address.
Okay, 2777 Mission Road, Nashotah.
And tell us a little bit about your day, real briefly.
The brief of it is that it was long and filled with a lot of plane rides and almost not making it.
So you
here.
flew here from Denver to come to this meeting, right?
I flew here from Calgary.
Calgary.
Calgary to Denver, and then Denver not to Milwaukee, but to Chicago, because that got
Okay.
canceled. But I squeezed myself onto a flight to make it here. so
Okay. Well, we appreciate you doing that.
glad to be here.
All right.
Want me to go?
Amy?
Okay. So the applicant is submitting a concept presentation. Depending on how things go tonight, she would resubmit for the actual business plan of operation at next month's meeting. She did attempt to submit that application. We had a little snafu with the fees and stuff at City Hall. But she is proposing to occupy the vacant tenant space, which is just south of City Hall in the piece that kind of sticks out a little bit closer to the road. And she is proposing a tattoo shop. It is not specifically listed as a permitted use, but it is most similar to a barber shop or a beauty shop, or there is a term and other service uses. And so really, we're just looking for feedback, or the applicant's looking for feedback regarding whether or not the tattoo shop falls within those categories, and she can, come back to submit that business plan of operation. And she did submit just a few plans of what the building space may look like. So she's not proposing signage at this time, but this gives you an idea. That is the building frontage, what the signage might look like. And then some ideas of the interior space. I can try to zoom out a little bit so you can see all of it. So I guess she's looking for your feedback.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the tattoo shop that you want to run and how it's similar to some of the speakers we had tonight about how nice it's going to be and why we should be convinced that you're going to make it that way and the way that you're going to keep it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. My experience in the industry is that there are genres of tattoo shops. And it really depends on, I think, the kind of clientele and the kind of artists that you want to maintain as a shop owner, what kind of genre you fall into. In my experience, the most pleasant experiences that I've had as an artist have been in the shops that most represent a beauty salon or something more boutique, something that aesthetically is pleasing, not rough around the edges, and feels like when you walk into it that it's welcoming and that you want to be in that space. You're not just there to get a tattoo, that you actually actively want to be there and, you know, be like, oh, hey, this is really nice. Like, I want all of you to be able to walk in and say, hey, this is really nice. And maintaining that absolutely would be not only my goal, but I would want to improve it even as I go. There are little things throughout the building that I would love to eventually get to, removing old drop ceiling, things like that, to help open up the space even more in the future.
Could you put the mic a little closer to you?
Yes, sorry.
So they can hear you.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
What type of tattooing are you into? Or is it cosmetic? Because I have friends who've done the cosmetic ones, eyeliner and coloring on the face and stuff like that, and to creatures and everything else.
Yeah, so all of the above, generally. So I would not be the only artist proposed to be in the space. There is a chance that I would get a specific cosmetic tattooer that would specialize in eyebrows, eyeliner, lip, things like that. That's not what I do personally. It is it's its own stream. I would say that I do kind of like fine line, floral, kind of like pretty, colorful, also not colorful. There's a lot. I did send my portfolio links.
You did.
Sure.
I don't have it.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't think I have it available.
That's okay. But I can always show you.
I've seen many, I've watched programs of it and everything else. And I've seen, and I have friends, male and female, who have tattoos. But I found that working in this area, some of the women I know do more of the cosmetic type, the eyebrows, the eyeliner, the lips, you know, and all that.
It's a very similar, it's the exact same procedure. It's just the skin is different on the face. It's gentler, it's softer, it's thinner. You don't want, obviously you cannot mess up on that area. So if I got somebody who specialized in that and that was good at that, I would love to foster it. But personally, that's not me.
No,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the environment as to how sterile it is, what age, there must be an age limit to this. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's actually Wisconsin regulation that people receiving tattoos must be 18 years of age or older, and that would be a strict shop policy. Another policy that I would have is that anybody under 18 years of age would need to have parental supervision to be in the shop. So say somebody wants to walk in with their 16-year-old because they have a question, that's fine. Now, during the tattoo procedure, I would not allow anybody 14 years of age or under to remain in the tattoo space because I don't believe that when you're that young that, you know, there are potentially dangerous things. There are sharps disposals, there are chemicals, there's a lot of heavy cleaning things that are in the area and artwork. And that it would just be safer to keep that age restriction to 14 and up if they were to remain in the shop with their parent or aunt or uncle while that person is receiving a tattoo. As for the sanitary, I have very high expectations of both my shop and my artists. We use Cavicide, which is a nationwide recognized cleaner by clinics. If you want to look it up, it's basically what everybody uses in any sterile health environment. So that has a 3-minute kill time. It kills basically every germ that you can think of, as well as our actual products themselves would be, unless I were to eventually bring on a piercer, in which case things are autoclaved, which is just a sterilization process that typically piercings go through before being inserted into the body to clean them. My tattoo artists, all of their equipment would be 100% disposable. Wisconsin does actually allow autoclaving of needles. Basically, that process looks like clipping the tips off, resoldering new tips on. I would not allow that in my shop. The reason being is it is a very old practice. And although, yes, it is sterile, I find it more questionable than you are opening a brand new pack that has been sterilized and we know that it is clean. Outside of that, all of the other equipment would all be disposable. And
Do you follow biohazard disposal?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's really important.
yes. So Sharps disposal containers, all of our garbage would be specifically biohazard disposal garbage, in the same way that the hospital would get rid of their garbage is how we would get rid of our garbage specific to biohazard.
Okay. All right.
So Amy, we're not concerned about the zoning code and it not stating tattoo parlors or shops?
Well, it's up to you whether or not, so it does say and other service uses, and it is a service use similar to a
That gray
beauty
line.
salon. It's a gray area. You know, some of these uses, they're not, somebody at some point in time is creating a list of uses, and it's not always bulletproof as far as catching every term, and, you know, so it's up to you, and or whether or not you're intentionally
it's
leaving it
kinda-
out. I mean, I don't know what your intentions were.
I can understand it falling underneath those, though, 'cause it is kind of cosmetic, just like doing your hair, having your hair done. Anything like that, anything with the body is cosmetic. So I would think that it could fall underneath that in a way, because it is cosmetic,
Yeah,
although it doesn't come off.
Well, I mean,
Once it's
similar
there,
to
it's
a
there.
beauty salon, rather than working on somebody's hair, they're working
Yeah.
on their skin. I mean, that's
Right.
really what it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I see similarities calling it like clinical enhancements, things like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely impressed with your shots up there for the, you know, your decor. That's definitely an upscale. It's not like a tattoo parlor, not that I've experienced, you know, from like 30, 40 years ago. But I had walked in them at the time. But, you know, so I think that's real fitting for the area, you know, and would be a complimentary, you know, to your business and to that area. So, yeah, if you kept it something like that, you probably will attract a lot of people here saying, well, my husband's at work or my wife's out of town. Now's my chance, you know.
And is that the updated version of I've been drinking all night and it's time to get tattooed?
Sure, why not?
Just wondering.
Or your daughter saying, Dad, you promised me. Okay, no. So, yeah, go ahead.
One of the reasons that I specifically want to open up a tattoo shop here is because I love the atmosphere and the aesthetic of Delafield. We actually are from Canada. My husband and I are from Calgary, Alberta, and I would have never opened a tattoo shop there. It just would not be the space that I would want to attempt to flourish in, because this is the style that I'm going for, and that is not the style that area needs. But this is when we moved here, immediately I felt like this is where I could have a space like this and where it could flourish. And so, yeah.
Good.
How many artists would you employ?
The space would likely allow for myself plus 5 other artists in total. So 6 artists and potentially an administrator or managerial position as well.
And what other services would you look to provide other than tattooing?
None.
None. Okay.
Other than potentially piercing. And that would be something that maybe I could come to you at a later date for. The shop itself would need a separate permit in order to have a piercer for Wisconsin's regulations. Tattooing and piercing have 2 separate permits, so tattoo and piercing shop. I would already need to go through other ways, and I would be happy to also go back through this to approve that.
Yeah. Do you have any idea of what your hours would be in days?
Yeah, so it's a hard question to answer. General operating hours of a tattoo shop are anywhere from 10 a.m. to around 8 p.m. Now, the reason I say general operating hours is I have had clients fly in 12 hours and we start at the crack of dawn and we go until dusk. Like, we go all day. And so each of my artists would be 1099 contractors. They would be independent. They would book their own clientele. So if they happened to be in there, I would restrict their hours. Don't be there past midnight. That's actually a policy on my insurance. Don't be there past midnight. Don't start before 5 a.m. But if they chose to be in there at 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., I wouldn't want to restrict that time frame for them to be working, if that answers your question.
This gives us an idea of what you're looking at.
So I'm intrigued. Holy Seraphim, you brought in 2 people in collars. I've been a trustee for a Catholic church for years. I don't think I could get 2 people in collars. Just a little bit of background on what Holy Seraphim, I know what a seraphim is, but what's the history?
So my husband attends Nashotah House Theological Seminary, and he is currently studying to be a priest. And I think that one of the, as a Christian myself, one of the beautiful things about being in the tattoo industry is being able to bring something different, something peaceful, and not necessarily that I'm in your face, this is a Christian shop. But I thought if I am opening a space that's reflecting myself and my own work, that I wanted to sneak something in there that was me. And that's seraphim. And for those of you who don't know what a seraphim is, it's the biblical description of an angel. It has 6 wings, 6 eyes. It's kind of weird looking. But the imagery, I think, fits the tattoo industry. It's a cool name. If people don't know what it is, it's not like it affects them in any way. And I just thought it was kind of a cool wink at myself and who my husband and I are.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
I don't see a problem with the facility like the one you're proposing, opening in the city of Delafield. So the only concern I would have is that it maintains the way that you're describing it, and we have a business plan of operation. And if we get reports a year from now or 4 years from now that there's other things going on, then we have the right to pull your business plan of operation.
Absolutely
So,
fine.
as long as it goes the way that you're talking about, I honestly don't see a problem with it for myself.
Thank you.
Or the community for that matter. But we have an education process to go through. I've had a couple of people reach out to me, and in fact, one lady was in today talking about why would we allow a tattoo shop. So as your friends came and said, we have to be sure to explain the difference between what they're imagining in their mind and what you're proposing with your shop. They're 2 different things.
Absolutely. And I think that already I want to start building that with the community and building a relationship with the community. And something beautiful about Delafield is that all of your small businesses are intertwined. I see Element Style do women in business all the time. I see Blue Collar Coffee do little events that connect the other businesses, and I would want to do something similar.
Maybe join the chamber for a while.
Join the chamber. I mean, I'm right next door. I'd be right next door.
Yeah, you're right next door to them, right?
Buff City Soap, I'd love to see if they'd be willing to create a product that I could sell for them. Just have those connections with the community to help bring down that stigma, and part of that is why I brought so many people.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for all your efforts to get here today, and we look forward to seeing you here next time you're ready.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to D, DELC 0792-992-1307 Genesee Street, DELC 0792-074-439 St. John's Road, DLC 0792-069, DLC 0792-078-411 St. John's Road, and DLC 792-073 and DLC 792-060. Unknown address on Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road. Owner Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC. Applicant Chris Miller, Miller Marriott Construction. Applicant seeks approval of preliminary plat and site plan and appearance approval to develop a 30-lot single-family subdivision. Welcome.
Thank you. Chris Miller, Miller Marriott Construction, Heartland, Wisconsin.
Amy, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Okay. So Miller Marriott has, well, you've seen the concept plans. You've gone through the land use plan amendment. We've gone through the rezone, so we know what this looks like, although it has changed a little bit. They are officially submitting their preliminary plat and site plan for review. What I have on the screen right now is the site plan review, just because it's a little bit more colorful and easy to digest. They're proposing 30 lots, so 28 of the lots will be between Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road. I think their initial proposal several months ago had 32 lots in that space. So was it 32?
It started at 36. We had zoning approval at 31, and we're coming back with 30.
30. So, well, right, but in this space, 28, I think it was 30.
In the main area, you're correct.
Yeah. So they have dropped the number of lots. And then on north of Wisconsin Avenue, they were originally proposing 3, that's one large lot currently right now. They were originally proposing 3 lots, now they're proposing 2 larger lots. So that's the final proposal. They're proposing 3 outlots, which will be owned in common by all of the lot owners. So they have one outlot on the very west side of the property that will be used for stormwater management. And then they are proposing to vacate, is it Smith or Smythe? Smythe Road and Farron Lane, and replacing those with green space areas and a public trail system. So that vacation process has been introduced by Common Council. It will then be brought back to the Plan Commission in March for a recommendation, and there will be a public hearing at Common Council and final action I believe that's in April that will occur. The properties are served by sewer and private wells. They are proposing stormwater management. Does get a little bit tricky on this site. So what they're proposing, if you can see on the screen, it's a little bit hard to see. All of these little blue circles, those are going to be individual rain gardens. So what they plan on doing is rough grading the rain gardens at time of development construction. They are submitting, this is a little bit unique because we want to be very careful with ensuring there is no adverse drainage and that grading is done and the landscaping is completed and everything's buttoned up by the developer before they're released from the project. So they're going to rough grade the rain gardens, and then each lot owner will do the finished landscaping for the property and ensure final grading and plantings of the rain garden. So for every permit, they will need engineer approval for the grading plan and the rain garden to ensure that it complies with the plans that were approved. And they'll have to submit as-built plans as well. And that will, Miller Marriott will be on the hook to ensure that this stuff gets accomplished. As far as the preliminary plat goes, there are, if you look in the staff report, there are comments from myself, the engineer, and the surveyor. They're minor. For example, in the surveyor comments, Beacon Hill is a subdivision already used in Waukesha County, so I believe they intend on using Beacon Hill of Delafield, Beacon Hill of Delafield. So that's enough of a difference that they can pursue that. So the final plat will come in with a slightly different name. Again, the rain gardens, that's a sensitive area where we want to make sure that they follow through. So we want to see easement notes on the plat. We want to know that the well setbacks are being complied with, so there'll be notes on the subdivision plat for that as well. And then if any final stormwater management review results in any kind of substantial layout change, they'll need to come back through the Plan Commission for a preliminary plat review before proceeding with the final plat. Otherwise, they can come back with the next step at that final plat. And then as far as the engineer comments go, they have reviewed the stormwater management plans. They are, they feel that everything is spaced accordingly. They're just wrapping up the final review, so the applicant will need to get the stormwater management plans approved. You need to, as part of your decision, review and approve the road widths, which are 24 feet. So I believe the standard is 27 feet. 24 feet requires Plan Commission approval. Just for reference, Nagawicca Heights and Hawthorne Farm were both built at 24 feet in width. And they also proposed a sidewalk system, which is being proposed around the entire perimeter of this site as well. The engineer does feel that 24 feet is very sufficient for this type of development. we'll talk about a little bit. There's a pinch point where the St. John's signage exists. They want to keep that there, but that's pretty narrow in between the space. So I believe they're proposing to be at 22 feet for road for really short portion just to get through that entrance sign. So preliminary plat has to comply with all these conditions before the final plat is submitted. And then as far as the site plan goes, let's see, we talked about the rain garden, rough grading, landscaping. So they did submit a landscaping plan that includes landscape. So there's quite a bit of existing trees that exist in the Smythe Lane, but they are proposing some additional landscaping at the north end, in the center, and on the south end. And then it might be hard to see on that screen, but they're proposing 4 bollard lights. Let's see if I can find a picture of that. So on the screen here is the height of the bollard lights. They're just 25 inches in height with LED lights at like 11 to 15 volts. So very subtle, but something to give, provide a little bit of an aesthetic in those public open spaces. So going back up.
How many total lights of those are you putting in roughly?
I'll go through. So here's the Smythe Lane. There's 4. So 1 on the north end, 1 on the south end, and then 2 in the middle area. And then Farron Lane, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on Farron Lane. They have a couple of little extra landscape zones. Everyone know where? Can you see them on there? They're just little yellow circles. So with the landscape plan, they do show a mix of trees, shrubs, and herbaceous plantings, ground coverage, but they don't tie. So on the left side, you can see there is a species list, but they're not specifically tying the species to each individual plant, which we typically like to see so that we can verify compliance with the plan. So one of the recommended conditions will be that staff review the location of each species on this plan. And then they are also proposing landscaping in the stormwater facility area on the west side of the property.
Any lights over there or no?
I don't believe there's any lights, no lights on this side, and I don't believe there are any lights along Genesee Street. They are also proposing some landscaping as an entrance into their subdivision. Any questions on landscaping?
There's also a monument on the north side.
Oh, I'm going to get to that, the signage.
Yeah, I have a question with the rain gardens.
Okay, go back to the rain gardens.
Yeah. A lot of times with the rain gardens I've seen are been like on boathouses, the runoff that comes from there. How is this similar or different from that? Are those areas going to be recessed with plantings in there or what?
They are. We
need your name and address.
Josh Padelco, Trio Engineering. Great to see everyone. This neighborhood in general, if you look at the homes to the north, quite a few of these homes have yards that don't drain anywhere. And they have really kind of have this natural rain garden effect happening. And we kind of leaned into that here and understand part of our property does the same thing. So the idea with the rain gardens is to really kind of make that part of our drainage plan. And because we have sidewalks around our entire property, one of the struggles you have is when water builds up in a rain garden, it often goes right over a sidewalk. That's the outlet. We didn't want that situation. So to Amy's point, as far as rough grading, we need to initially install these. We're actually including in that, digging the shape of these, and typically they're going to be a foot. They'll be about 18 inches below the sidewalk. But under and crossing the sidewalk is going to be a 4-inch or 6-inch outlet pipe that'll be under the sidewalk. So these rain gardens will outlet to the roadside swale without having to overtop the sidewalk.
Okay.
And that's really intentional because we want that walking platform to be as dry as possible. So the idea is they're localized on select lots where grading makes sense, and your yard will drain to this rain garden. Some natural infiltration will happen there. It's very granular soils. And anything from a big rain event will go through the outlet pipe to the ditch and kind of make its way down to the infiltration basin. So no berms. You won't see any berms. They're just kind of subtle little depressions. And 150 square feet for most of these is like a 9 by 17 foot area, and they have all different shapes. We're trying not to just do postage stamps on each lot, but have them be a little more organic. And the plan with making flexibility for adjustments is should a home lot layout want to adjust the shape of it in a spot, we want to reserve the right or ability to adjust that easement shape so long as it meets that 150 square foot size requirement to really best fit that setting. And then putting the landscaping, the final dressing of it as part of the landscape plan with the home. The intent there is that it really becomes part of that landscape bed and plan for the entire property, so it doesn't feel like it's somebody else's. We want the homeowner to really kind of have it look like it's intentional and fits with the lot.
Josh, can you comment on the maintenance of these?
And Chris, you probably can touch on maintenance just in general here. I think it's important.
Yeah, so stormwater management is going to be carried out by the Homeowners Association. That will include rain gardens. It will include grass cutting for the homeowners and snow removal for the homeowners. And the HOA will be providing that.
Okay. Good.
And the long-term rain garden maintenance is going to be part of the stormwater maintenance agreement. So it will be recorded against every property in the subdivision, just to be clear.
If you fill it up and cover it up and put grass seed on it, we got records of where they're supposed to be.
Thank you. We need it.
Yeah, I think something like that is, visually it's going to look great, and it's going to be quite functional. So good, thank you.
Okay, and then just going back to these outlot areas, those paths will be 6 feet wide concrete paths, and then they'll have the sidewalks along the road system as well. I'm going to touch on tree mitigation just for a moment. Okay, so this is a tree mitigation plan. They are going to have to cut several trees, but majority of them are in the right-of-way of the road, and they are not obligated to replace those trees. So the city wants to see those roads come up to city standards, and the applicant is going to be making that happen as part of this subdivision. So there will be 81 trees removed in the right-of-way of the roads for the road widening effort. Only 17 of those trees are protected trees, so a lot of those trees out there are not protected, so that's important to note. And then there are 32 other non-protected trees that are going to be removed from the interior of the site. There are no protected trees being proposed to be removed within the development, so they do not have to mitigate for tree loss. The applicant did revise the plans to ensure that the large oak tree in front of the existing president's house was saved. So you can see that that's an effort was made in order to protect that tree. With lighting, we already talked about the bollards. Right now there are 9 lights along St. John's Road. I believe it's St. John's Road. They're little decorative street lights that are
12 foot, 18 foot tall, I mean.
Yeah, right. They're street lights, but they're really more for St. John's. They happen to be in the right of way of the road. They're proposing to remove those, so that is something that typically the city doesn't have street lights in areas like this, but we would like to send this to Public Works for final review. And if you have any comments regarding the removal of those lights, that should be discussed tonight as well.
We're putting the recommendation you'd like to see those retained, or you don't care if they're retained, just to try to maybe give them some direction. The city did a little research, and we have no idea who put those lights in. We don't know where they came. We can't find a record that says where they came from.
Doesn't surprise me.
I think we're not even sure who pays the electric bill on them.
Wow.
We think we do, but we're not sure.
Okay, and then back to that monument. So the applicant is proposing an entrance monument or sign. We would call it, a subdivision sign. at the intersection of Wisconsin Avenue and Genesee Street. So that would be on the north entry, not the entry with the St. John's entrance. That sign will be 8 feet in height. The nameplate within the monument is pretty small. I think it's 2 foot by 2 foot.
Did we have a picture of that in the packet?
Yeah,
We did?
so I have it on the screen. It's on page 109.
Don't remember it.
It's part of the landscape plan.
Well, what the sign actually looks like.
Yeah, it's on the,
Okay.
there's a little
109.
detail that kind of pans out.
You have it up. You have it up right now.
I do have it up on the screen. Can you see it?
No, I can't see it. I gotta get closer.
So the monument sign, we do want to make sure that it's outside of the vision corner easements. I don't know if you have the vision corner easements marked. That's one of the surveyor comments of the preliminary plat is to mark the vision corner easements, and then we would cross-check and make sure the monument sign is outside of that.
So is that the same type of stone that's in the entrance on the other side?
The intent is to match it, yes,
Yeah,
and to make it look similar to the buildings at St. John.
And then let's go to the St. John's entrance real quick here.
I put out some
Or wait.
photographs for you
Yep.
of what we're talking about so you could get a good visual of it.
So what I'm putting on the screen is new. They were originally trying to squeeze the sidewalk and the road within this monument, but it was getting pretty tight, and it may have created an unsafe condition where the sidewalk is at level with the road, and people turning in and out just wouldn't be able to see those people. So they're proposing a new idea, which the city engineer supports very much. And that would be, if you look on the north, the red line is the sidewalk. They would go around the larger monument piece, and you can see in your pictures there's a real short wall at the end. They would just cut through that short portion of the wall with the sidewalk, and then what that would allow is a direct link to connect to the system along Genesee Street. So it's much safer. And gives them some more space between the road and the monument walls for snowplows and stuff maintenance to get through.
And it comes back in and matches up with the crosswalk.
Yeah. Am I describing that accurately, Josh?
It sounds great, yes.
Okay.
You did a good job.
And then fire suppression, so all developments have to supply fire suppression or pay an in lieu fee. The fire department does prefer the in lieu fee so that they can pay for updated equipment versus underground tanks that often are hard to maintain, or they don't have the water or whatever, they don't have the ability to use them when they get out to the site and have an emergency. And in this case, I don't think they probably have enough room for an underground tank. So the applicant has agreed to pay the in lieu fees. That'll be incorporated into the developer's agreement that needs to go to Common Council. The applicant did submit declaration of restrictions. So with that, you've got your architectural requirements that are built into it. A draft is included in the packet. They are restricting each lot to a single-family residential use, which is important because technically R4 zoning does allow two-family. So the zoning approved and his declaration of restrictions confirm that this development is limited to single-family. And then he is also asking for the right to use one or two of the homes as model homes for up to 5 years. So Miller Marriott would ask to use those homes to conduct open houses, public showings, and sales-related activities, and placing advertising signage on the property. So I know one of them, at least, is intended to be along Genesee Street where they have the visibility. Did you have another site in mind?
Right now, we're thinking lots 29 and 30.
Okay, so lots 29 and 30 are,
The two northern lots.
okay.
To what?
I'll go to the plan, I just have to find the page. 87. Hold on, I gotta go back to my packet. So 29 and 30 are the two lots on the north side of Wisconsin Avenue.
Tell us a little bit about how that would work. You've told us it's staff, but just to the planning commission here, is it?
So obviously, this is a fantastic location and super excited to be part of it. And our thought would be we would build a home on 30 We like that opportunity. It kind of sets the pace for the rest of the community. That would, even in our best day, if we started it this summer, it gets open next summer. It'll be open for a year. Now we're already 2.5 years into it. That would get sold, and then we'd put another one on 29. Again, that takes another year. It's open a year. That's why we use 5 years as the term. We are asking people, customers into declarations to start their home within 3 years of purchasing their lot. And then we're also asking them to finish their landscaping upon completion, with some exceptions for people that have winter closes that they could finish in spring. So we're trying to get the project completed in a timely manner because it's a fairly tight project. Not a lot of room to move around.
So to his point on landscaping, so typically landscaping on individual lots is not part of the development process. It's part of the building permit review. And, once they have the lot rough graded and seeded, Scott's usually out of the picture. What the applicant is doing here, because we want to ensure compliance with the master grading plan, the rain garden plans and landscaping, there is a requirement that the property owners have to complete their landscaping at time of occupancy. The only exception would be if occupancy occurs over winter, they would be given a certain grace period into that next spring. That'll be built into the developer's agreement. And part of my comments in here is we're working through the developer's agreement right now. That'll have to go to Common Council. We would like these types of provisions that are built into the developer's agreement to be mimicked in the declaration of restrictions for the subdivision, because oftentimes homeowners don't look at the developer's agreement. That's more of the developer's responsibility. They focus on the declaration. So we want to make sure that they're in there. So that would be part of our final review.
And if I can just interject something, am I correct to say that the landscaping is all being done for every lot by the same landscaper?
Right now, but I think the reality is there's 2 landscapers we recommend. Right now I have one landscaper planning to do everything. I think if it becomes a capacity issue, we would integrate in a second one. Okay. But they're both reputable landscapers we use all the time. But the plan right now would be to use a single source. You get used to doing it. You know what the planning have to be. You understand the rain gardens, the seed mix has to go in a rain garden and what they have to be. So it's important that all gets integrated so the stormwater works.
I wanted him to point that out because they're planning ahead, right, for making sure it does get done right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I can get into the recommendation, but do you have any other comments or questions before doing that?
I have a question. Wasn't there a green space that went along with this on the field? On the northwest side of the
Are you talking about the golf course?
No, not the golf course, I don't think.
So not with Miller Marriott these properties are zone R4. They comply with the R4 standards, and there is no plan unit development conditional use or common open space requirement, green space requirement. They'll have to meet whatever the provisions are of R4. And then they have the 3 outlots that will contain green space, stormwater facilities, and the trail system. So I don't know, that's...
Yeah, I was just wondering about green space. That's what I was wondering.
So there will be, they're smaller lots than compared to what you'll see to the west. I think, let's see. Yeah, they have to meet a 10-foot side yard setback, a 25-foot street setback, and a 10-foot rear yard setback. Wow. But they're not requiring, their declaration of restrictions don't require a real large house, right?
No, it just has to comply with R4, which is a relatively small footprint. I think homes are going to range from 1,800 feet to on a smaller ranch to, there might be some that get to be 3,500 feet, a 2-story.
2-story.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Did I miss anything that you want to bring up?
I have one more question. That northern lot that faces, that's on Genesee, the farthest northern one. When you put a house on that, will it face the street on the interior or will it face Genesee? Because I believe it faces Genesee right now, the house.
Are you talking about
Yeah, we've talked about that and where the driveway would be.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you at this point because we haven't started to design that house yet. There's been a little bit of a debate in our office that we think it should enter not on Genesee just so it integrates into the rest of the subdivision.
There's a house there right now, isn't
There
there?
is right now.
And it
And
does face Genesee.
It does, but its driveway, its driveway actually does come in on Wisconsin if you look at it.
Right, but the address would be Genesee Street. That's where I'm going.
Yeah,
So that would change the address of that lot.
yeah, okay.
So, with no further comments, I do recommend approval of the preliminary plat and road right-of-way width waiver, subject to compliance with the planner, surveyor, and engineer comments, which are in the report, and all other approval and objecting authorities prior to submittal of a final plat. So with any subdivision plat, Waukesha County and the State Department of Administration also have to approve the plat. So they have to comply with those conditions as well. And then if any modifications are made to the layout that are significant, the preliminary plat will have to be resubmitted to Plan Commission before moving forward with the final plat. So that would be one motion. I would probably go ahead and make that motion separately from the site plan review.
How many motions are we looking for then?
Two.
I
think I have on the agenda, I have them in the same item, preliminary plat and site plan, but it would be easier if you just broke them out as
Into two motions?
Two motions on the same item.
So question regarding those streetlights, which would that fall under? If we said, leave the streetlights or pull the streetlights?
I would say the site plan review. So on the preliminary
Okay.
plat, all we want is the final plat, the accurate depiction of what's there when they record the plat, whether they're there or not. I think right now they're showing them present, and they are present. So that should be a site plan comment.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat with the planner's notes under there that are found in the packet.
Are there any specific call-outs that we want on that one? Or is
I
that
think
the
what he's
next
saying
one?
is with the planner's recommendation
Yeah,
and the
you
staff.
approve the plan.
But didn't you rewrite that?
No, not the preliminary plat.
Okay.
Yeah, I read through it as she was reading.
Yeah, but, okay, got it. The next one will be longer.
Okay, I'll second this one.
Okay. All right, are you good with the motion? Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. I have to vote tonight because of the number we have here.
I've been noticing that.
We've all noticed that.
Okay. Site plan review. So I was a little more vague in my report, but because there are several items, I did write them out in case you want to look at them. So with the site plan review, you can do one of two things. You can make a motion to approve the site plan subject to final staff review of several items, or you can have them come back. Either way, they have to come back through Plan Commission and Common Council for the final plat, so you can see the final documents, in any case. But what approving the site plan now would do is there might be a couple week window where they can start construction before the final plat gets to Common Council. Let's see here.
Well, what we talked about was they could approve it if they so choose, but we have a lot of qualifiers.
Yes. So the conditions would be, if you want to approve site plan subject to final staff review of the engineering, stormwater management, and civil plans, including review at Public Works, the landscape plans, which must identify the location of each type of plantings. They're currently not labeled on the map. Review of the removal of 9 street lighting. It's not written very well. Review the removal of the 9 street lights at Public Works Committee, and if you want to provide any comment on that, you can. The signage location, And as a side note, we're just making sure it's out of the Vision Corner easement. The declaration of restrictions, and you don't have to put this in your motion, but as a side note, we just want to make sure all the developer agreement stuff just get accurately reflected in there. And the review of the road entrance construction and sidewalk at the intersection of Genesee Street and St. John's, including the review at Public Works. So if this gets passed, it does need to go to Public Works the first Wednesday of March.
We're trying to let them get going, but we're putting enough qualifiers on here that we still have some
Yeah,
teeth.
I don't see the need for having them come back yet again for every one of these items to us when we've got other means of control for those. So I'm fine.
And
with
we
these.
will bring, and I
You
will
just gotta
bring
make
it
sure you
in
get all
for
those
the-
qualifiers in there.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'm going to make some comment about what she said. So
Did you memorize it?
It's on the screen. It's on the screen, by the way.
Oh, okay. I was reading the original recommendation. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind this, I don't mind if the streetlights are removed. You know, obviously Public Works will take a swing at that, but my 2 cents is, you know, if it makes it easier, you know, and we don't know who's controlling them the way it is to begin
They
with.
don't want them there.
And if you don't want them there and they make no negative impact if they're removed, then I don't see a reason why not to remove them.
We would prefer to remove them.
Uh-huh. And then as far as the sidewalk, I think the sidewalk that you showed up there is a great idea. The only concern then, I guess, or not a concern, the only question then is how does it impact the St. John's sign that's right there?
It might have to get moved.
It
5
might
or
have to
6.
get
It
moved.
does, yeah.
Then, yeah, it's kind of
Just
how
a
I
little
thought
bit.
it looked.
But you'd be responsible for moving it safely and securely
Yeah,
and
so I don't see that
reinstalling it.
being a losing situation there either.
Okay.
Agreed. All right, Ed, go ahead.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to approve the site plan, subject to the final staff review of engineering, stormwater management, and civil plans, including review at Public Works. The landscape plans, which must identify the location of each type of plantings, which are currently not labeled on the map. Review of the removal of 9 street lights at Public Works Committee.
Which the planning commission,
With the recommendations that we talked
To be
about here.
removed by the planning
to remove
commission.
them, yes.
Yes.
Any signage location that would be impacted by this plan, declaration of restrictions, and review of road entrance, construction, and sidewalk at intersection of Genesee and St. John's, including review at Public Works. And if it means moving the sign, we're okay.
and before we get a second, Crystal?
I'm good. I'll just copy that down.
I'll second.
Let me know when you're ready.
I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah, I'll just.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye, I forgot to say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great, thank you very much. You're off and running.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to E, DELC 0792990 and DELC 0793997. Unknown address, owner Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC, applicant George Irwin III. Applicant requests feedback regarding a conceptual presentation to develop a 45-lot, single-family subdivision on the former St. John's Military Academy golf course. If we can get both your guys' names and addresses.
My name is George Irwin. My address is 17320 Windermere in Brookfield. By profession, I'm a real estate attorney.
And Josh, and can you spell your last name this time so we get it for sure?
Oh, that's why the company's Trio. Josh Pudelko, Pudelko. Trio Engineering, 4100 North Calhoun Road, Brookfield.
Thank you. Okay, Amy.
Okay, so first of all, this is a very vertical plan, so it's small on the screen, but I can zoom in and out when we get there. So the property now as it lies, includes 2 legal lots of record. So the large rectangular piece, and then there is an additional smaller rectangular piece that's primarily environmental corridor, wetland, and there's floodplain. So the properties together make up just under 60 acres. Their development, if you can see, does not include the athletic field, so that is excluded from their development proposal. That's important to note. The property is zoned RE1, which requires a 1 acre per unit. And then the areas that are corridor and upland are limited to 5 acres per unit, and then they do not get any credit for the wetland and floodplain. So with all of that, they would be allowed 46 lots, and they're proposing 45 lots. I believe originally there was not the applicant today, but when Hendricks was in here, they were proposing 50 lots. Was that right?
Correct.
So they have reduced the development by 5 lots. They are proposing flexibility in the lot size. So RE1 by right allows minimum 1 acre lot size. They're proposing to reduce the lot size to a ½ acre, which requires a plan unit development conditional use, which they are not proposing tonight. This is a concept presentation, so they'll have to come back to go through the formal process. So with a PUD, you are allowed some flexibility in the lot size and setbacks and zoning dimensional restrictions, provided that the applicant meets a certain amount of open space that can either be commonly owned by all of the lot owners or preserved in private easements, but there are some restrictions that go with the private easement piece. It can't just be open space on a lot. So the applicant is proposing, and that open space does have to make up the same amount that would otherwise be required on an individual lot. So the overall square footage needs to be at least 30,000 square feet times the 45 lots. So they are meeting that requirement. This is probably the biggest difference from an original concept plan that was submitted by Hendricks. That original concept plan had 1 acre lots and then kind of 3/4 acre lots and then ½ acre lots going west to east that abutted directly to the west lot line. And then the lots along Oakwood abutted Oakwood Drive. They didn't have the, is it Oakwood Road? They didn't have the common open space in between. So now all of the lots are about a ½ an acre in size, so they're smaller, but what that's done is it's allowed them to put almost all of their open space in a common undivided ownership, which is really how plan unit development is typically drawn up and desirable, because that area is held in common ownership by everybody, so they all own responsibility to maintain that the way it's intended. They're just shy a little bit on the common open space, so they are proposing to use just a little bit of square footage in the athletic field in this northwest corner. So they'll be protecting that in an easement that will need to be in like a no-mow setting or something unused by St. John's. And we'll have to review that as we go forward. Someone had mentioned, in this report it talks about would like to see or they agree to do things. This is concept, so we don't have anything as a formal submittal yet. But once we get there will be plenty of restrictions and maintenance requirements and all that good stuff. So as far as the RE1 zoning goes, they are requiring flexibility in the front yard setback. They're proposing a 40-foot front yard setback instead of a 50-foot setback. And then the lot size and lot width need to be waived, of course, but all of the other setbacks they are proposing to leave as is. So the 20-foot rear yard is the requirement of RE1, 30-foot corner setback, and the 20-foot side yard. Those are all typical RE standards, RE1 standards that they're proposing. They are proposing a public sidewalk system that will connect throughout the entire development. So it will wrap around the road and then connect up with Spanger Street, which will connect. You can see they're actually connecting it to Chris Miller's development. And then they are proposing a more informal, so those will be concrete sidewalks along the road. And then I believe the path along Oakwood will be asphalt, is that right? And then the asphalt, will that extend through the entrance piece? So I
Yes,
think,
yep.
so this entrance piece that I have my cursor on, that would be asphalt. And then you're gonna have your standard concrete sidewalk, and then again, it'll be asphalt at the end of the cul-de-sac that leads to the path that will run along the north side of Bark River. And the reason being, the city requires asphalt paths for the more recreational trail system and a concrete sidewalk when it's part of a street system within the right-of-way. And then they're proposing a more informal trail. It actually was added because it was a request of people on the west side of the development to have some kind of access through there. So there already is like an informal trail system that goes through the golf course, and that's what this is. It's a mowed trail. They are going to be proposing landscaping throughout the site. They don't have a formal landscape plan, but you can see some bright greenery along Oakwood, along the west lot line, and then some additional trees throughout. So when they come back formally, they'll have to submit an actual landscape plan. They'll have to submit, stormwater management. They're showing some areas. We don't know exactly what that looks like or means, so they'll have to prove their work. Sewer will be extended throughout the development. The lots will be served by private wells. You may remember we actually have a traffic impact analysis and a well report that was conducted by Miller Marriott that included development of this site. So we can, remind me, I'll make sure to put that in the packet for future submittals.
It's good for another 45 pages, at least.
Yeah. And then, I don't have it in here, but we talked to the applicant about Exeter Street, and I think it was this week, there was a submittal dropped off, that there's quite a bit of parking from St. John's that takes place there, and it gets pretty congested, and so, we have asked them to come up with a solution on how to go about that. And I don't know if you want to discuss that at all tonight. I don't know that I know it well enough to do it myself.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to, but Amy, finish.
That might be all that I have for tonight. So tonight's meeting would be to provide feedback regarding, I'm not done yet, actually. So they are proposing, there has been concern mentioned about the headlights off of Oakwood Road. I believe the individual that commented on headlights is located at this property where I have my cursor. So what the concern is, as they head east, those lights will head toward their house. The applicant is proposing to plant some trees along Oakwood Road. The applicant has agreed to discuss options with that property owner, and we would ask that they come back with something that hopefully is amicable to both parties. I don't know if that, we don't know if they'll be able to succeed or not on that end, and they'll have to bring that forward. That's all I have. If depending on the comments, they'll need to come back to schedule a public hearing for conditional use, and then they will have a public hearing. That will be for the general, so a conditional use for plan unit development is done in 2 steps. A general development plan, they'll have to submit drafts of all of the documentation required, similar to what we just reviewed with Miller Marriott. That goes to Common Council, and then they come back for the specific implementation plan that goes to Plan Commission and Common Council's final documentation. This doesn't, no, never mind. This is not, no.
And for those that are interested, what Amy just described is typically a 3.5 to 5 month process. A lot depends upon how quickly the applicant gets back their information. So there's many kicks at this can. This is the first of many meetings to come. I just like to remind people that we won't be looking to approve anything of any aspects for at least 3 months is fair, right?
well, there'll be recommendations potentially in April or May. The Plan Commission will probably be at a point of making a recommendation. You know, the decisions on this will take place at council.
So great, if you guys could give us your overview, that'd be great.
Be happy to. My name is, again, George Irwin. By way of background, I've been doing real estate. I'd be happy to.
You have to get kind of close. You have to get pretty close.
By way of background, I've been doing real estate development in southeastern Wisconsin for about 40 plus years. But what's ironic is I think I'm kind of winding down my career, even though I've never been busier. And the very first subdivision that I ever developed was in 1984, and it was in Delafield. Before many of the probably many of the people that are here. And in those days, the first lot that I sold was for $24,900. And unfortunately, the cost of doing business today is just so extraordinarily high. And that's a very important point as we go through this process. We're proposing 45 lots, even though the Planned Unit Development regulation and the standards might suggest more. I don't think that I can practically, with what is before you, shrink that density. And I want to say that with as clearly as possible, because when I tasked Josh, who's an extraordinarily good engineer, with coming up with a plan that addressed all of the public comments, he gave me a 2-page memo. There's at least 20 public comments that have been integrated into this plan. And every one of them, after the comment, it says provided. And I'd be happy to have Josh spend the next 35 minutes going through that with you, item by item by item. But every single one of these have been adopted in this plan. What is before you is about the 8th rendition of his efforts. And I think it's a very quality product. Each of the individual components of this proposed subdivision has, I call them pockets. There's about 5 different pockets of small 5 or 6 individual lots with their own individual open space, but all the open space is integrated. I heard 2 public comments today. One person wanted me to mow it. The other person said, don't mow it. I really think we got to get to the mowing issue right now. I'm sorry, because I'll do whatever. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant for my way of thinking. But if people are going to run back there, before I submitted this plan, I met with St. John's and wanted to make sure that they understood what we were doing here. There is some storm ponds that are in close proximity to their athletic fields. We're going to integrate those ponds so that we're going to be taking their runoff as well. We've tried to maintain some of the open spaces, protecting the old growth trees. I expect to provide a very comprehensive landscape plan with any development that I do that includes species, location. You don't have a particular ordinance with respect to number of trees on an individual lot. We usually plant not less than 2 trees on every individual lot. The timing of that is always controversial. Do you put them in before the houses and then they end up putting the driveway in the wrong place, or do you wait to another time? But you'll see a very comprehensive landscape plan. We expect to do something that is extraordinary here. I think that this is one of the most unique pieces of property that I've been exposed to in a long time. And I'm very excited about presenting something to you regarding it. I think we're going to have a product that you're going to be excited about. I'm excited about it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh, and he can tell you how we got where we are. Thank you.
Thanks, George. And I think part of tonight, it's a great opportunity for us to have a conversation, and any input that you can share, even as it relates to what we heard from some of the neighbors tonight, is extremely helpful, because our next step is going to be much more detailed and is going to start to kind of solidify and show what these things mean. The task that we've had at hand, I think, has been to create a beautifully elegant subdivision, something that really embodies Delafield on this site, and each evolution, I think, has worked towards that to this point where we have really a 45 lot community where every lot's desirable. I don't think you can look here and not find a place where you'd want to live. And every open space is meaningful and more than just for the lots that live here, but really for the community as a whole, both from its access to its preservation to the beauty it provides either from the outside in or inside out. The gross density here, we have about 60 acres. Our gross density is about 1.33 acres per lot. Our net density is 1.17 acres per lot. It just so happens we can't count some of the woods in the net open space type calculations. But really, I don't want to lose sight of what this project brings and the public benefit, which really is kind of solidifying a passive trail along the north side of the river. It exists today. Some people use it. There's no easement. There's nothing formal about it. With this project, that will be formalized. The paved trails that Amy talked about will be public, within public easements. The trail along Oakwood, really the intent there is it lives behind the trees that are along Oakwood today. We're keeping those, with the exception of one that may fall right at our entrance. But the idea is that our trail kind of meanders behind the trees, and you can kind of see when you're out there right where it wants to be. It's going to be more than just a path along a road. It really is, something special, and it abuts our open space landscaping, which we envision having that fence and berming and landscaping so characteristic of Delafield. That's what we see along that Oakwood frontage. The mode path that we provide on the west side, our intention in showing that is that it really stays, I think, as both neighbors were describing, almost like a recreational path through a no-mow type meadow. Really, the mowed path, what we typically see in these types of clustered communities, it's like one pass with a riding lawnmower, enough to kind of keep things off your ankles and legs so you don't get so itchy, or the dog can walk. But really, that's the intent, and really our intent was to have it be accessible to the public, with a public easement. And the shape of it may change year to year a little bit. A lot of times it's based on where the person mowing wants to run it. But we'll have landscaping that'll delineate these property lines that abut it and kind of border the neighbors to the west, which I think was an important thing the neighbors wanted to see. For us, with this, we really create a sense of setting at each entrance to this development. Off Oakwood, you see a non-traditional shaped right-of-way and road. We intentionally are kind of curving the inbound and outbound lanes of that boulevard so we can create a meaningful open space in the middle and really break that sight line so you're not driving down Oakwood just kind of looking down a straight road. When you come into this subdivision, what you're going to see at that T intersection is an open space outlot. You're not going to see right into somebody's front window. You're going to see open space and the trees that exist just north of the athletic fields. If you come in off of Exeter, you're going to see another boulevard and kind of meander or curving type road, which breaks sight lines. It helps slow traffic. It creates a sense of community. As soon as you're in this development, no matter what direction you're coming, the road is turning and really kind of creating something private, quiet, as soon as you get into it. The same is true with the trails and sidewalks. As you come in, you come through landscaping, you come through something and kind of enter into a really special community.
If you could, Josh, we can turn to Exeter if you want and just talk about what you're proposing there. Amy, does anybody have those materials, or should we just talk generally about
No,
them?
to be honest, I didn't. When I received them, I didn't think we were going to be talking about it tonight.
We can more formalize it, but the punchline on Executor is that we have 48 parking stalls. The 48 parking stalls are within I'm sorry, I apologize. You're very welcome. Executor has 48 parking stalls that are closely aligned with the existing right-of-way, which is a substandard right-of-way. And so what we're proposing to do is to add some pavement on both sides so that at the end result, there is no parking within that public right-of-way, and that the right-of-way will be 24 feet. Which is,
sounds like
let me,
and you could.
yeah, let me kind of clarify. So right now we have roughly out there 26 feet of pavement through most of it, and 8-foot parallel parking spaces on one side. So when you're going through during a normal day, really you have 18 feet of effective road that you're able to drive on. It feels really tight. So what we're looking to do, and we have a plan that we had emailed before, and I could pass it around if anyone is interested, adding 4 feet to the south side, 2 feet to the north side, and really creating those 8-foot parking areas intentionally, keeping a 24-foot drive lane, just like we had talked about at the Beacon Hill of Delafield project, kind of widening that out. Also protecting pedestrian crossing areas. You know, we have...
Because there's at least two.
There's two, and they're
Look at
pretty
that.
defined where they come out of St. John's. And right now, it just is almost a free-for-all. One of them kind of goes through a parking space. So our intention in doing this is let's make it better. Let's make it more functional for the school and for the users of the road. So we've kind of done protected, defined pedestrian crossing areas with this.
So what we provided to date has been provided to St. John's. We've met with them. We're waiting their input, and then we'll refine it for you. We want to make sure that all stakeholders are.
Well, appreciate you proactively addressing that one. It's,
yeah.
I think it's one that we're going to need your help with, and we're glad you're working on it. So it's a positive thing.
Solve the problem before there's a problem. Yeah.
A question I do have, I think for the commission was raised by the neighbor. In our proposal, the PD, the plan development, is proposing a 40-foot front setback, which we like, we're comfortable with. 50 foot is for the normal for the zoning. There was some mention about, do we want to see that reduced any further? And it's just kind of a question to you, if there's any interest in that, or if 40 feet feels right.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the 40-foot setback on that.
And the purpose of doing that is to create more open space on the west, and we've already created in this plan anywhere from 80 to 100 feet of open space before the lot. So you're gonna tack on that extra 20 feet on top of that already based on this plan. That's an extraordinarily big buffer.
Would you want less, 30 feet?
No, we're
okay.
comfortable
I
with
like
40.
that.
Because of the size of the homes, you want to have a front yard that is going to look attractive.
Okay.
I think at 30 feet, you're going to start having the homes too close to, because once one does it, they all got to follow suit. So having a decent front yard, I think, makes a lot more sense.
And
I agree.
the setback in the back is the minimum, so
Correct.
it could be 40 feet or more in the back too.
But builders have a tendency of taking the setback where it is, and they build to the setback. It's rare that they deviate from that. And as the developer, our deed restrictions are pretty standardized. I've been doing them for myself and other developers. I've done literally hundreds and hundreds of them. And our architectural control committee will set that setback very tightly, and then everybody's going to be there, because you don't want to have variations in where the houses are. So 40 feet works.
Good.
Yeah.
So I think from our standpoint, we'd appreciate any feedback, any input you can share on anything that kind of jumps out at you with this plan. Happy to
I
answer
would
any
just like to
questions.
thank you guys for doing exactly what you said, where you took that list of 20 comments from the other meetings and incorporated it into this plan. I mean, it shows. It really does. So you made huge gains as far as my perspective on this and moving this project forward by listening to the citizens and clearly making virtually every adjustment that they asked for. And it's we appreciate that, and they appreciate that. I believe it. I believe it. So I'm complimenting you for doing that. And now you're addressing Exeter. You know, we have this gentleman we have this headlight issue, which I think is a real issue. And we just ask you to find something, whether it's a berm or it's pine trees, something the two of you can agree to.
Yeah,
We don't really want to be involved with it, but we need him to come in and tell us he's happy.
Yeah, it's all about being good neighbors. It's all about being good neighbors. And
exactly.
you know, I already told him that when the weather's a little better, I'll go in his backyard and we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
And that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
One of the members of the public talked about the diversity of home styles. Do you have any comments on that tonight?
I really think that that's going to be something relatively easy to achieve. The Architectural Control Committee components of my standard form deed restrictions provides that. Many communities mandate that. Next year's parade of home site is one that I'm developing, and it's in Sussex, and no more than 4 homes that are similar in the entire project. You just have to have that. You want to build character in neighborhoods, so that won't be hard to achieve. The problem is that you'll have individual builders that will want to take major segments down, and there's a lot of similarities. So we have to make sure that we limit ourselves to quality builders who understand what we're trying to achieve, and that's a vetting process that I'm very experienced at.
And maybe next time you come, you can bring some examples of the type of houses that you'd put in there and the types of maybe materials you wouldn't allow, like would be, or at least a list or comments to what those materials might be.
The deed restrictions that we put together, and they were already put together, I just didn't want to fill up Amy's email, sets all that out with a lot of detail.
Yeah, and sooner than later, you're going to want to share that with us so we can, get a look-see at those. And then I just want to reiterate one other thing too that was mentioned, along the border with the properties to the west. You guys said you were going to have detailed landscape plans. Just make sure that area is also included with whatever trees or bushes or things you might put in there in addition to the no-mow grass.
The landscape plans always identify species and location. It's pretty customary because that plan then is, it's been my experience that plan is an adopted exhibit to the developer's agreement. And so, and then you turn around and take that same plan and you put it out to public bid. So it all works together.
And that's something, that's a good point, because I didn't bring that up with Miller Marriott's development, and the public may be interested. So when an applicant comes through this process and they have to comply with all of the different plans, they have to submit a letter of credit that they will not get it'll be broken down by issue, but for landscaping, they don't get their money back on the letter of credit until they've shown that they've put in all the landscaping according to the plan. And with the previous applicant, there's going to be a $5,000 bond placed against every lot until that rain garden is completed. So the city does a lot more behind the scenes than I think is always represented at these meetings, but the city will make sure that the landscaping's done.
The critical thing from my perspective is, do you like the layout? Giving me those comments back, because the next round is tens and tens of thousands of dollars to take it to a more specific stormwater management, landscape plan, all these professionals. And so tell me, is any tweaking, because I think it's great. I've really worked hard on it.
I like the plan.
Yeah.
I do. And as far as your path on the west side, I like the idea of a mode. I think people are going to like that idea for the simple fact that they don't have grass rubbing along their legs, or it's easier for their dogs to walk through and pick up anything that
no ticks
is there, So I really do like what you have here, at least as far as this proposal goes.
Yeah, I would agree. Your iterations are, this is good, and you've, like you said, you've incorporated the neighbors' comments and their concerns, and it's looking very positive.
One of the comments that I
You
saw,
want to read those back.
the city's expectation has been a brilliant subdivision. I don't think we're brilliant yet, but we're getting it. I heard that one.
I do have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
That I noticed on the map, where you have these little breaks, like at the top there, like here, here, here. Is that like public, or do the landowners, property owners own those little open spaces?
The outlot.
All of the outlot is owned in common. So there are a total of 4 outlots. If you actually look at the flow, all all of that is one outlot. It all connects to each other. And so there's a total of 4 on this site that have, that connect to each other. So
Little breaks.
and it's all owned in common. You have a homeowners association. It's an incorporated homeowners association. And that goes back to when I said I need 45 lots, because we have over 30 acres of open space with significant landscaping that's going to go in. And those people are going to have that shared expense. You start dialing it back, it simply doesn't make any sense to burden those people with that much open space and the responsibility associated with it.
Laura, is your question, for example, between like lots 11 and 12, there's a gap?
Yeah, those gaps.
access
that's
points?
going to be.
Those are access points.
Yeah.
Okay, is that going to be mowed, or is it just going to be left wild?
What do you want? What do you think makes sense?
So I'll make, I mean,
Mowed, not mowed?
I think the idea there is, so all of those, everything that's colored green is common open space owned in an undivided fractional ownership by all the lot owners. Typically, that has a pretty uniform look to make it clear that that is not somebody's private lot. It is part of a different space. So we will be reviewing a landscape plan that includes an open space management plan as part of it. And typically, we're going to see something with a no-mow feature so that it is separate from a mowed yard. Otherwise, people are going to think their lot line goes to the center of it.
Yeah,
But it is nice what they're doing here is from a plan unit development perspective. Those little tiny breaks, even though they're small, it's helping just slightly divide up the development into different sections instead of continuous lots. And it is also really nice from not their development, but just plan unit development perspective. It's contiguous. So there's the entire border has common open space, and then those strips are connected to those borders. That's a really nice feature. Instead of having broken up common open spaces that you have to individually access, anybody in the subdivision can easily get to all of the areas. So it is, it does really neatly meet the PUD intent in that regard.
I do like them. I'm just wondering how many people are going to use them to get to the path, going
Well,
those
shouldn't.
little.
There's sidewalks
They probably,
there.
you mean the
Little
owners?
breaks here, yeah. Well, anybody,
They might.
you know.
And that's okay. I mean, nobody's saying you can't walk on the no-mow area. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not turf grass.
Okay. All right.
One other thing, Josh, where your path ends to the east on Oakwood Drive, it'd be really nice if we could just get that extended in the city right away so we could get to a crosswalk on Hillcrest Drive. I don't know if that's another 80 feet or what that is, but it kind of goes to that comment of how do you get to that path? And the really only one that would make any sense based on what you guys are doing is just to get it to Hillside. So anybody that's coming through those subdivisions can go across the crosswalk, get on that path, and either get to the no-mow path or take your sidewalks to get downtown.
The city, I believe, has a long-range kind of trail
We do.
system plan
do.
that takes it, I think, to C. So,
Yeah.
the intent here really was to build our segment of the city's kind of larger plan.
I see. So you're thinking more the city, if they want that extended, that they should figure that
I
out?
don't know, that's what the thought process, that's why, to be fair with the point, it's a trail that, begins and ends
At
kind
your
of
property
along the way,
lines?
along our property line. That would be why, because we're building a segment of something larger. I think your ask is, can you just do part?
Is that asphalt?
It is
Yeah.
asphalt, yeah, and it's like, I think the ask is, do we go in front of 3 neighbors' driveways with a paved trail?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think.
We'll consider it.
Think about it.
Yeah. It's all in right away?
All in right away.
Yeah, it's about 240 feet
Okay, 240. You always have your scale.
every time.
80 feet,
You're
40
lucky.
feet.
You know what, I usually bring out a big
140.
calculator too, I just nerd out up here. Yeah.
Anything else?
Now's the time.
Yeah, that's.
You're gonna spend a lot of money, so if there's something else, make sure you tell them now. It costs more to redo it. All right, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, number 11, comprehensive plan, zoning and ordinance revisions. Appears we have none. Number 12, report of city officials. A, planning commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting will be March 29th, 2023. The regular meeting submittal deadline will be March 1st, 2023. B, correspondence. I'll refer to the packet. Planner, any report?
My only reminder for the March meeting is to read your staff reports. Mike Court will be filling in for me, so he will give his explanation, but I do genuinely recommend you read the reports because he won't be as familiar with the items as I am.
And for the March meeting, Tim Eicher will be filling in for me. So Amy, if I've been joking, you're going to get the B team.
You're supposed to say that out loud.
Okay, and we don't have a building inspector snow report there, so seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 9:20 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
What about my
Sir, can you hear us?
Try your microphone.
Can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. So what is the name of your company, your business, please?
My business is Image 360. We're a sign company.
Okay. And who is your client?
RBC Wealth Management at 440 West.
Yeah, there was a gentleman here who said he was with your company as well, or a
He was
representative?
probably with RBC Wealth.
He might have been with RBC Weld. Okay, let me just tell you. You were approved 20 minutes into the meeting. You're approved.
Oh,
Okay?
thank you.
Yep.